It was early morning on my ranch, crisp air biting at my cheeks, when I heard the chime of an email alert. I opened it and my stomach sank. The HOA had issued a fine for hunting on my own land. According to Karen and her board, even though the land was mine, the community rules somehow extended to prohibit hunting on private property. The audacity was infuriating. I had always anticipated overreach like this, and I knew exactly how to respond. Not with complaints, but with decisive action. I started by surveying the surrounding area. Karen's HOA had a sizable portion of hiking land adjacent to my property. Normally, these trails and woods were open to residents for hiking and recreation, but the ownership structure was clear. The HOA controlled the rights, but I could legally acquire them. I moved quickly, consulting real estate attorneys and drafting a purchase agreement to buy the entirety of their hiking property. The deal was executed within days, quietly and legally, with no immediate notice to the board. When the purchase was finalized, I held the deeds and control. Suddenly, the hiking trails that had once been public within the HOA were under my authority. I posted signs indicating that the land was now private, access strictly prohibited without my explicit permission. Karen and her board were blindsided. The land they thought was theirs, where they had issued fines and enforced arbitrary rules, was now entirely under my control. They could no longer monitor, fine, or even allow hiking. It was my land, and I made the rules. Next, I made sure enforcement was clear and unavoidable. Gates were installed, security cameras added, and notices were delivered to residents explaining the change in ownership. Any attempt to enter without permission would now be considered trespassing, a civil and potentially criminal violation. Karen's fury was palpable. She had fined me for hunting, thinking her authority extended over my property, and now she couldn't even allow residents to walk through her own former hiking land. The irony was delicious. Over the following weeks, the HOA scrambled. Residents called the board, demanding explanations, and the board was forced to admit the change in ownership. Karen tried to negotiate access rights, but the purchase was ironclad. Every clause, every document, every signature protected the new status. The hiking land, once a symbol of HOA authority, was now a private, inaccessible preserve under my control. Their fines, their rules, and their imagined supremacy evaporated overnight. Finally, I sent a polite but firm notice to Karen, outlining the irony. She had attempted to penalize me for using my own property, and now the land she had leveraged to enforce her rules was entirely inaccessible to her. The moral was clear. Overreach can be countered with strategy, preparation, and timely action. The HOA had assumed power without consequence, but their attempt to control me had only resulted in them losing control entirely. Standing on the edge of the newly acquired trails, I couldn't help but smile. The forests, streams, and paths that Karen had once thought were hers were now protected under my ownership, and the HOA's authority had been completely neutralized. What had started as a petty fine had turned into a masterstroke of property law. I had turned punishment into opportunity, asserting my rights and shutting down the HOA's ability to interfere. Karen and her board had been outmaneuvered completely, and the lesson was clear to anyone who thought rules could extend beyond the bounds of real authority.